Welcome, everybody. I'm Susan Nadell, E2's Western Advocate. Thank you so much for joining E2's Fellowship Showcase. We are so pleased to begin the year with this inspirational webinar, as we will hear from E2's 2024 One Hotels Fellows. Let me share my screen with just a few slides. Can you see that okay?
Yes, Susan.
Great. Well, for guests joining the call, E2 is a national nonpartisan group of business people who advocate for smart policies that are good for the economy and good for the environment. E2 provides a time-efficient way for business leaders to make a difference on policy issues on state, regional, and federal levels. We have 9 chapters across the country that we engage with in a variety of ways. If you aren't a member, please consider joining. The support we receive from our members is really valuable and allows us to do this work. Feel free to follow up with Ying or me for more information. E2's One Hotels Fellowship is funded through a generous donation from Barry Sternlicht, the chairman of Starwood Capital Group. I'm excited that we just started our 8th year. The fellowship is designed to support and develop young entrepreneurs to solve pressing environmental issues through projects that are good for the economy and good for the environment. Each fellow was provided a $20,000 financial award. In addition, we support them with several E2 resources. They work throughout the year with an E2 staff member. Some E2 members served as mentors to our fellows, and we connected them with policy or issue experts at our partner organization, Natural Resources Defense Council. I want to give a special thank you to our members on this webinar who have helped us with this fellowship program. I'm also pleased that we have chosen our 2025 class of fellows, and the application for the 2026 fellowship will open in May. You can learn more about current and past fellows at our website, e2.org/fellows. And now on to the 2024 cohort of our 6 One Hotels Fellows, who will each be giving a presentation on their complete projects. They are Nina Young, Diamond Spratling, Kyle Rudzinski, Sasha Rose Phillips, Wawa Gathru, and Stephen Engler. After all the fellows present, we will leave 10 to 15 minutes for questions. And you can submit those questions through the Zoom program by using the Q&A feature. If you're calling in, you can email me at snadell@e2.org. I'm now going to turn to Nina to get us started with her presentation. Take it away.
Great, thank you, Susan. Give me one moment. I'm so sorry. Great, thank you. First, I want to start off introducing myself again. My name is Nina Young, and I want to thank the team at E2 and One Hotels for sponsoring the fellowship. Thank you to Bob Keefe and Gail Parson for your leadership. And I would especially like to thank Sandra Pruitt, the Director of Federal Advocacy, for being a thought partner during this fellowship. The presentation today is entitled Paving a Path for Careers in the Clean Energy Transition, a Communication Strategy, Unlocking Opportunities for Low-Income Communities Nationwide that Benefit the Environment and Spur Economic Growth. Being an E2 fellow the past year has been incredibly rewarding. I'm insatiably curious, and I love to dig into a variety of topics. Having the opportunity to conduct independent research has allowed me to explore creative avenues to develop strategies to engage a broader audience on the benefits of the clean energy transition. This particular strategy is focused on the channels that can be used for the target audience and less per se of the actual language and terminology used for the communications. Over the past couple of years, I've worked in the clean energy field, and I work on a variety of topics. But after reading this article here that I have posted on the slide, The Great Electrician Shortage, Going Green Will Depend on Blue-Collar Workers. Can we train enough of them before time runs out? Written by David Owen of The New Yorker in 2023. This article really sparked that interest in kind of the space around the workforce development component of the clean energy transition, because he spoke about his experience of transitioning his heating and cooling system in his home in Connecticut into a heat pump and having difficulties. And in his exploration, he reached out to the Connecticut Technical Education and Career Systems, where he learned about a vocational program where high school students were learning how to gain skills and trades that were core to the clean energy transition. And in his interviews with the students, they were very cognizant of how important their work was in decarbonizing the economy. However, that was not the motivation for the work that they were doing. The motivation was earning a livable wage and having the ability to start earning income while they were in high school, because many of those kids were from middle and low income communities. So thinking about it from the experience of the actual individuals who are entering the workforce and seeing the opportunities to work in the trades, I was wondering, this is an example in Connecticut, but how can other individuals who are entering the workforce seek opportunities to play a role within roles that are essential to the transition? And so thinking about the way in which communication happens now frequently, particularly amongst, as I mentioned, young individuals who will be entering our workforce, is through social media. Traditional methods of, newspaper and the nightly news is shifting from a 24-hour news cycle and the proliferation of smartphones. So we get all of our information from smartphones, and many social media platforms are housed on those smartphones. And so I dug into some of the more popular channels in which individuals could get access to information about these clean energy roles. So here are 3 examples that I'll highlight quickly. Salary Transparent Street is a very popular platform that is actually DC based, but has a national reach, where the social media influencer actually visits various conferences and even in some cases stops people on the street and briefly interviews them about their role, their salary, and the pathway in which they took to get to that role. They also have a long form element where they do extended interviews with several individuals within a given industry to talk about that experience in the industry as well as the salaries associated with it. A national news provider, CNBC, has a social media platform called Make It, where they also do deep dives on a variety of skill sets and industries where it's addressed from the first person perspective of the individual in that industry. And then third, the Green Jobs Board, which is also a social media, but with a static platform on a website in which you could dive deeper into different job opportunities that are available, which is also driven by a social media influencer. And then I quickly want to do a deep dive into a case study that is really most relevant, because this platform has already done an exploration specifically on the clean energy transition in the state of New York. So Road Trip Nation is a nonprofit organization that uses long form documentaries to take young folks who are exploring different careers, to conduct interviews with experts in the field, do site visits to actually see the work themselves. And all of that content is captured, placed on a website, as well as the documentaries themselves are shown on PBS. And then there's a whole educational element. And so they've been doing this for over 20 years, but as social media has grown, they've increased their social media presence and have used all of the platforms that I spoke of, but really do the deep dive on this particular example. Empowered State is the clean energy transition in New York State, and then the career opportunities associated with it. So my recommendations for the communication strategy is to meet people where they are. I don't think social media is often talked about in the clean energy transition, and those who are in the industry, we know how important this work is and what's needed, but the general population doesn't. And then particularly those who are looking for careers in industries where maybe colleges is not an option, but they really are interested in figuring out how to contribute to the next phase of our economy. So we have to meet them where they are and use social media to both grow your individual businesses as well as reach an untapped workforce. Second, partner with social media influencers that are aligned with the business goals and can expand the engagement in an authentic way. I just provided 3 examples, but there's hundreds of individuals on social media that also have podcasts and other ways that communicate with the targeted audience. And then connect with a younger audience. While social media is a major channel, there's also educational opportunities. So as vocational programs are resurging a bit, and then also community colleges are tapping into this training. We have to think about broadening and figuring out how to get younger individuals interested in this work. And so the next steps is actually there's ongoing conversations with supporting ways to connect E2 members into some of these platforms so we can continue to elevate the importance of this work moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina. I'd like to have Diamond. Are you ready to share?
I am. I'll just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, hopefully folks can see this. Hi everyone, my name is Diamond Spratling. For those of you who don't know, I am the founder and executive director for Girl Plus Environment. We are the national nonprofit that is empowering and mobilizing Black and Brown women, non-binary people all across the country to stand up for climate and environmental justice in their own communities in every capacity possible. And so for my project, I had the opportunity to launch the 3rd cohort of our Protecting Our Energy project. So we've done it twice before, but never in this capacity. But basically, this was a 6-month cohort program that was developed for Black women small business owners who are based in energy burdened communities across Atlanta. And so many times these are individuals in communities that are paying upwards of 18% of their annual income on energy bills alone. And so we found that this would be a great opportunity to get Black women small business owners involved in what it looks like to be a leader in the clean energy space. Because ultimately, if you're a business owner, you care about your economics, but you also have to care about energy bills, not only for yourself and your business, but also for the consumers, because they can't support your products or your services if they can't even pay their energy bills alone. And so I kind of saw this as a perfect opportunity to bring individuals who are leaders within their own aspects in their own work into a space or into a sector that they normally would have never thought to get involved in. So it was very exciting. And I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about the program and kind of what I offered in this space. So we got tons and tons of just different people applying for the program. Ultimately, I ended up selecting 5 fellows that received stipends for their participation to participate in this fellowship program. And so the first kind of like step, a part of the program was basically for me to develop this curriculum that was both very intentional in educating women about energy policy, but doing it in a very intentional way that was, free of like technical terminology, but also relating it back to what it has to do with them as business owners, but also as individuals within a community that is energy burdened. So I ended up developing a curriculum, and then we also had a program kickoff event. This was hosted back in September, which was very exciting. And so this was basically a space for all community members within Atlanta who are energy burdened to come and be a part of a very communal space where we could collectively learn about energy policy here in Georgia, what it has to do with our health and well-being, and what it has to do with our everyday lives. And so we had an entire panel session. We had tons of actions and activations, such as submitting public comment, learning how to participate in public hearings, registering to vote, understanding who your public service commissioner was, and really what that relationship had to do with local policies. So it was ultimately a very fun and exciting event. And I actually also have a video at the end of this presentation to just kind of share what that space looked like, because it was just a really great opportunity to bring people together on an issue that impacts us so much. But unfortunately, we have been pushed out of those spaces to be a part of those decisions. So we hosted that event. And then in addition to that, all of our fellows, they were honored at that event. And then we begin our 2-hour monthly trainings that I hosted. And so for those trainings, I basically wanted to, one, introduce the concept of clean energy in a business aspect, but also energy policy and energy justice. So making sure that our fellows knew how to understand their utility bills that they receive every month, but also start to think about how they could incorporate clean energy practices in their businesses, especially in a way that was affordable and not too much of a lift, because again, they're small business owners and they were already pretty overwhelmed with other day-to-day responsibilities. So some of the, things that we covered within the curriculum was we hosted a first session that was really that clean energy 101. What is clean energy? What is that included? How do I avoid greenwashing? How do I be a leader within my community, because my community already looks up to me because I have this business, and all of those things. And then we also talked about energy markets and understanding that there are many opportunities, especially when we think about the IRA, for small Black businesses to get involved and take ownership of this clean energy transition, which is something that we haven't always done in the past. And so we did tons of trainings around how to even apply and find these opportunities to fund their clean energy business or ventures. And then we also hosted a session on clean energy business plans. So helping our fellows to figure out, how do I even create a clean energy business plan? What does that look like? How do I talk to potential investors about my work and how it relates to the clean energy space? And then lastly, our last session was actually very fun. And we talked about storytelling and pitching, and how do I talk to my consumers about energy justice and the relationship that it has with our health and well-being. And so ultimately, we had this training to really make sure that our fellows feel comfortable talking about energy justice to their consumers, but also to people who may be willing to invest in their business. I also hosted one-on-one mentorship sessions with all of the fellows every month. And then I also ended up creating an additional fund, which was a clean energy project fund that I called it. And basically we gave each of our fellows additional funding to be able to host their own clean energy event or project, which I'll talk a little bit more on the next slide about what that looks like. And this photo here is just one of the photos that we took at our clean energy event we hosted in September.
Diamond,
Okay, yes.
we're still seeing the first slide.
Oh no. Let me stop share and reshare and see if that works. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
Let
It
me
looked like it
see.
was still highlighting the first slide.
Okay, here, let me just redo that and see if this will work. Okay, are you seeing a slide that's like green, pink, that says activities?
No, we're just in the protecting our energy project, the first page.
Okay, well, okay, well, I'll just not do full screen share and then just see if this will help. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, how
Here we
about now?
see
Are we good?
activities.
Okay, perfect. Well, I may just have to leave it like this. Hopefully this is okay. But this was a slide that I was talking about, the work that we do, that I was doing. And then just want to quickly talk about some of the fellows that we have. So these are just 3 of them here. So Christina actually runs an entire like tax business. And so what she applied to do is to educate her clients on clean energy tax benefits and different technologies and opportunities that they could take advantage of. So she hosts an entire panel discussion and webinar about how to use like clean energy within their taxes, especially during tax season, and different things that especially community of color can take advantage of. And then we also have Bree, who's another small business owner, and she actually facilitated an entire webinar called Empowering Entrepreneurs. And so selling in Etsy and promoting clean energy. So working with other Black women-owned businesses to understand how they can incorporate clean energy into their work. And then finally, we also have Debbie, who runs an entire tattoo business. And so she actually organized a sustainability focused mixer for tattoo artists to really understand how they can use different sustainable products when they're working with their consumers as well. So just wanted to highlight some of the fellows that I got to work with. And then as far as just like some impact and next steps, well, first is our fellows are wrapping up their projects, which is very exciting. But I've also made it very clear that, you know, the work and support that we have been providing them over this past year is ongoing. So that continuing that one-on-one coaching. And then I've also built out this clean energy girlies coalition here in Atlanta to do actions together. So more women of color can be able to take different political or energy policy actions, such as submitting public comment, showing up to hearings, talking to their representatives about clean energy investments and energy burden. And then ultimately just thinking about the fact that this was a very train the trainer framework. And so in all of the curriculum and things like that I put together, I did it in a way to make sure that our fellows felt very confident and comfortable to then go and talk to their consumers or other people in their network about the importance of incorporating clean energy into their work. And then I just included a quote from one of our fellows. I did send out pre and post surveys and evaluation surveys, so feel free to read that. But as far as like some next steps, we did receive additional funding to be able to expand this work, actually, which has been very exciting. I recently got a grant from the CDC Foundation to expand this work all the way out into Mobile, Alabama, because they saw the impact that we were having here in Atlanta. And then also working with Howard University to bring this project into DC, and then a few other places as well. So super excited for the opportunity to continue this work, and also just really grateful for E2 for allowing us to even be in this position. So with that, I'm just going to show maybe a short video, if it will work, we will see, of one of our energy events. Okay, and I'll pause it there because I feel like I'm a bit over time, but thank you so much and super excited to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Diamond. Now we'd like to move on to Kyle.
Thanks, Susan. First, I'd like to thank Bear Sternlicht for funding this opportunity, to Gail and Bob for the leadership of E2, for the E2 staff, and especially to Susan here, who was my guide and sort of support throughout the entire program. So thank you all. I'm Kyle Rudzinski. I am an executive director at Pollination Group. We are a global climate investment advisory firm. And unlike Diamond's very hands-on and interactive fellowship, I had a different kind of fellowship. I wrote a white paper focused on scaling finance for soil health and looking at ways to unlock mainstream capital. The reason why I focused on a white paper was that despite the financial benefits of regenerative agriculture, it was very clear that the domestic uptake of regenerative practices remained low. And so as there's a lot more research coming out showing that regenerative practices do yield long-term profitability for farmers, and obviously the ecological benefits associated with it, there's still only about 1.5% of the America's acreage is covered with or uses regenerative practices. So when I looked at all the different reports that were out there, a lot of these acknowledge and recognize that financing for regenerative practices is a big barrier, but they typically take the farmer perspective and try to figure out what are the barriers to farmers adopting regenerative practices? What are the financing barriers they face? It's all really good. But when you look at where the money's coming from, it's actually coming from two primary sources. 81% of the more than $500 billion going to farmers through the form of loans every year is coming from just two groups, the commercial bank system as well as farm credit system. And so given that concentration, I thought it'd be really important for us to take a look at what is hanging up lenders from pushing regenerative practices or supporting regenerative practices. So there's some obvious elements with policy changes in the Farm Bill that are not super amenable to regenerative. There's crop insurance policies. There's other incentives that are pushing a certain way. There's general education and technical assistance required. But I still want to understand what's the hang up with lenders, because if there's stronger long-term cash flows and profitability of borrowers, you would think that there would be a much bigger movement from them. So what I did was I took my time to not only go through a lot of the literature out there, but also speak with a ton of experts in the field. So I had dozens of conversations with people from representing over 20 different organizations to be able to understand their perspective on this, the food system in terms of where financing could be going and the barriers. And when I aggregated and synthesized sort of the feedback that I got from these various interviews and conversations, three big things came up in terms of barriers to why lenders themselves are not supporting regenerative in a bigger way. The first is that there are big data limitations. So even though there is significant data coming out showing regenerative is more profitable, in general, it doesn't have the same kind of 30 years of historic data at the county level that lenders use to make their underwriting decisions. And so when you think about that, it really means that the data that they're using is much more valuable because it's more complete than the data that's coming out. And so they lean towards that. Given that, they perceive a lot more risk. And so if lenders are perceiving a lot of risk, they've actively said that there aren't a lot of de-risking mechanisms or financial structures that would make them willing to make loans to regenerative practices that they're less familiar with or that they don't have as robust a data set for. And the third big challenge that came up was distribution. There are 1,400 commercial banks giving out ag loans every year, and there's also 60 farm credit associations that drive a lot of lending. So in terms of trying to get all those entities to act in a unified direction or in a single direction, or to have the right programs that have the right geographic and crop reach, has been quite challenging. And so through my paper, I kind of discuss the context, some of those challenges, synthesize some of the findings, and then make a few recommendations in terms of what could be done about it. Ultimately, the prospective solution that I landed on was injecting risk-tolerant capital alongside mainstream capital. Primarily, as I mentioned, the lenders today are making loans that are going to conventional practices, and for them to be willing to take on regenerative practices with their borrowers, they need to have some sort of de-risking mechanisms. And those can come in the form of four primary ways that I looked into. The first is obviously changing the law, right? That's a NRDC E2. It's the marrying of the economy and the environment along with policy to make those changes. That's one way you could actually shift existing policies and laws and incentives to be able to provide this kind of capital. A second, which I want to thank Nina on the call for her help, I was looking at a regenerative agriculture focused green bank. So looking at how the green bank system in the US and globally works, and understanding that a lot of that's focused on clean energy, looking at how a similar structure might be utilized for agriculture was explored. Numerous experts thought that that wasn't probably the optimal way to go, but it was one worth looking into. A third is more sort of Wall Street finance, and that's sustainability linked structured finance. So this is looking at things like mortgage-backed securities, collateralized loan obligations, more structured solutions that can inject broader forms of capital. This has a lot of promise, but there's an origination issue in the sense that you can create all those products on Wall Street, but to be able to make enough of the right kinds of loans that can then be put into those products is a bit of a barrier at the moment. And the last opportunity that I looked at was working with some of the consumer packaged goods companies, the corporate supply chains. So something they have going for them is they aggregate farmers in a pretty effective way because they need to source ingredients for their products. And they have trouble being able to finance programs themselves because they don't own their supply chains. And if they have the option to invest in their supply chain or invest in marketing or new product development or something else, they'll tend to invest in the latter. And so working with them to be able to utilize some of their capital to leverage into bringing in additional capital is another area that I looked at overall. So that's kind of the flow and structure of what my paper follows. I'm looking forward to publishing it later this year. I'm actually right now in the final stages of editing and review from a handful of groups. And should anybody have any questions about the fellowship, the experience, or this work in particular, I'm looking forward to answering them at the end of this call. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Now we'll move on to Sasha Rose.
Thank you, and I'll be on camera shortly. I'm just making sure I have everything up that I need. Okay, and hopefully you can see the presentation. If not, just let me know.
We can see you, but not the presentation yet.
Okay, is that good now?
It's starting. Yep, now we can see it. Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Sasha Rose Phillips, and in my day job, I work to connect communities and nonprofits to capital to advance innovative climate projects. And much of my work over the last 2 years, as is the case with a couple of the fellows, has been focused on the implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, and to a limited extent, the CHIPS Science Act. And as I was, talking to our community partners, engaged with the ecosystem, I recognized that there were 2 gaps emerging. The first being that there weren't many capital sources and incentives that were designed to meet the benefits of small, medium, micro-sized businesses. And then second, what did exist was often hard to track, access, utilize on the part of owners. And so in response, I started to look for opportunities, and E2 came across my desk, and I decided, why not leverage this to create a potential solve? And I also recognized that I needed to first validate this problem, make sure that my partners in the field, others I hadn't met at that point, were also seeing the same problem, and that I could find support in co-designing a solution. And so I partnered with the Minneapolis Regional Chamber to survey their members and also to do focus groups. And we were able to survey about 202 business owners and received about 121 usable responses, just broadly. And the survey broadly assessed their interest in sustainability. It started to identify some of the bottlenecks that they were experiencing on their respective sustainability journeys, and it also gauged their familiarity with existing incentives. And then when we did the focus groups, we did 3 with 9 companies, that even further deepened our understanding of what the needs were. And those conversations in particular were crucial in shaping the design of what is ultimately a platform. So the platform has 3 parts. The first component focuses on education and providing essential training on sustainability basics and how to build the business case for sustainability. And I was really surprised in the feedback I was hearing from very seasoned business owners that continued to be a gap, even though so many resources existed, both in the digital space. And I already knew and was working with technical assistance providers, but they, for some reason, still didn't have access to resources that really helped them to get to this piece. The second part is a planning tool, which helps businesses organize and prioritize their sustainability projects, many of them being electrification projects, while also identifying relevant incentives. And then the third component connects owners directly to qualified contractors. There are other facets or pieces to this platform, other offerings that it will provide. And so I'll just name them very quickly. Of course, we need an emissions avoided and cost savings calculus on the back end, but we also decided to just provide that as an offering. And then we also wanted to make sure that the platform would have digital storage and organizing capabilities for quotes and receipts as folks are engaging with contractors. And then finally, we also wanted to make sure that it could serve as a clearinghouse of sorts for templates and resources for anything sustainability related and anything business related. So everything from drafting your net zero commitment statement to actually developing a public facing sustainability plan. So let me walk you through quickly how the platform would work and how an owner might use the platform. And what you're going to see are images of the wireframe. And you might not be able to slow down long enough to see everything, but I'm happy to circulate a PDF copy of the wireframe if it's of interest to anyone. Okay. So first, a business owner would encounter the platform and register. And during this process, they would provide key information about their business and the facilities they're occupying, whether they own or rent, whether they have a vehicle fleet that they want to upgrade, the nature of their heating system, who their utility providers are, you name it, we're asking. And then they'd be directed to a foundational course. Perhaps it's called Sustainability 101 or Essentials for Greening Your Business. And those initial courses, or that initial course, would provide insights on how to maximize the platform's tools. The first being a personalized planner that is pre-populated and pre-calibrated with the registration data that they would have provided. The platform would generate a customized sustainability plan with modifiable project ordering. And for each project, users can see anticipated costs, emissions avoided, or with potential emissions reductions, and available incentives. They'd also have the opportunity to browse a contractor database and be able to filter by ratings and location and schedule consultations through the platform. At minimum, the platform will provide tools so the owners can, again, calculate cost savings and emissions avoided, and at best, from ideation to completion, connect businesses with all the tools and resources they need to reduce their environmental impact while saving money and accessing and maximizing existing incentives. So I know that was a lot, went through pretty quickly, but hopefully through both the images of the wireframe and what I've shared, you have a general sense of how the platform feels. So what are the next steps? We went through that process, myself and the folks at the Chamber, who I'm so fortunate for because they were excellent partners to design this wireframe, consult with the members of that chamber. But there are some really significant questions that we still have to sort through. Everything from how are we going to collect accurate cost estimates? How are we going to make sure that the calculators have the most up-to-date information and are using the most relevant variables as we continue to progress and see new technologies come on in the clean energy space? How we're going to vet contractors? How we're going to update information on existing incentives, even if this tool is only used by the chamber or used statewide, that someone still needs to be paying attention to that and updating the platform over time. And then I have been thinking about, even from the beginning, the fact that this actually might be best suited for energy as a service providers as opposed to business owners. And that's a conversation I've been having with the chamber. Do we partner with utilities in rolling out this platform and allowing the service providers to have access to it as opposed to the business owners? those are some of the questions that we are still sitting with. So I am really excited about where we're at with the project, and I welcome input, I welcome your questions. And I am also open to partnerships, because we can't build out every single facet of the platform. We don't want to replicate and duplicate efforts that already exist. And so if you know of resources and support, or organizations and people who'd want to partner with us, we're open to it. Thank you.
And thank you. We will next go on to Wawa. Do you have slides? And can you share your screen? Once, Sasha, there we go.
Hi. Yes.
Wonderful.
See me? Okay, you can. Just give me 1 second. I had to like change it from Adobe into the other ones. Okay. So I just click share my screen.
Yep.
Mm. We're here.
Great.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Thank you all so much for coming and hearing about all of our projects. It's been such a pleasure being a part of this fellowship program, and it's wild to see how quickly the year has passed. And it's also really cool to see how everyone's projects have grown from when we first heard about what we were all working on. So my name is Wawa. I am currently proudly based in Philly. I'm wearing Eagles gear because go Birds. And I'm an environmental justice scholar activist. I'm a Rhodes Scholar, and I'm the proud founder and executive director of a national nonprofit called Black Girl Environmentalist. We are an organization that is working to address the very unique pathway and retention issue that exists for Black women, Black girls, and Black gender expansive folks. We serve a membership of over 3,000, have been able to redistribute over $150,000 to our members to engage in professional development support across the clean energy space and climate disciplines at large. And I'm really excited to share that last year in a feature, Forbes actually said that we were the largest Black youth-led climate organization in the country. So lots of exciting things going on, including the work that we were able to do with the support of this really critical funding. So initially, I was meant to use the funding to debut a video series as an individual outside of Black Girl Environmentalist, highlighting the narratives of 3 Black clean energy leaders. However, after a lot of thought and discussion with my advocate, decided to kind of shift gears a little bit and still hone in on storytelling, but more so on storytelling attached to a program that we debuted last summer. And that program is called the Hazel M. Johnson Fellowship Program. So with the support of this funding, we were able to fund 2 fellows who participated in clean energy internships at the Regulatory Assistance Project and the Good Energy Project, and B, be able to do a storytelling campaign that featured the voices of our fellows. So it was a 4-part video series that kind of told the story of why the program was meant to be, who Hazel M. Johnson was, what her legacy means to the next generation of climate leaders of color, the experiences of our fellows, as well as what we look forward to in building a clean energy future for all of us. So this is a little bit about BGE in general, our theory of change. We work really at 3 main verticals: community empowerment. So we have a multi-city hub program and a climate and culture campaign where we essentially do place-based engagements across 14 cities in the US, everywhere from Philly, DC, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Houston, Chicago, et cetera. Green workforce development, which is really where this fellowship came in handy around really creating our own pipelines and pathways, as well as collaborating with existing green institutions, organizations, and thought leaders who are also invested in essentially building a climate movement made in the image of all of us. And lastly, narrative change, really harnessing the power of social media, the reach of our digital newsletter, as well as just, contributing to thought leadership around why it's important for us to build towards a workforce that is truly, one that's representative of all of us. So the Hazel M. Johnson Fellowship Program is an innovative 10-week-long summer climate internship program. So the program is essentially one where we work with different green organizations across disciplines who agree to host our fellows. In addition to fellows being hosted by these organizations, we as an organization negotiate a salary for them, which is an hourly wage of at least $18 an hour. Really excited to share that last summer, over half of our fellows received more than $20 an hour. As an organization, we provided on top of that a $5,000 living wage stipend. Each week of those 10 weeks, we did weekly 3-hour digital professional development trainings with the support of our full-time fellowships manager. And at the end of the summer, we hosted an all-expense paid in-person retreat at an eco lodge in Washington State, which was really phenomenal. As you can see on this slide, our why is really just talking about how, Black talent is still underrepresented in the green economy, and how this is an environmental justice concern, and how the Hazel M. Johnson Fellowship Program is via, being a pipeline program working to address these paradigms. So our partner organizations were pretty diverse, as you can see. We can look at them from the verticals of climate tech, education, clean energy, advocacy and policy, corporate responsibility, and conservation. This fellowship specifically funded the clean energy end of things. So that was Good Energy Collective and Regulatory Assistance Project. So both of our fellows were doing primarily clean energy work and research in particular. So these are the logos of our inaugural partners. And yeah, so the fellowship was our first time doing it in the summer of 2024. It was a really incredible opportunity to, as a Black woman Gen Z led organization, to support our very own demographic in a very innovative program. We're the first climate internship program that's led by Gen Z in the country. And it was really awesome to see the ways that participatory justice really informed how we conducted the program. In our inaugural year, as I shared earlier, we selected 14 fellows. These fellows were either rising juniors, rising seniors, or recent graduates of up to 2 years, as well as first year in their graduate programs. The institutions that they hailed from were pretty diverse as well. We had representation from HBCUs, community colleges, public state schools, and elite private institutions. And the age ranges were from 19 to 24. So this is a bit of a breakdown. Unfortunately, because this was a PDF, I tried to convert it into a PowerPoint so you can see that some of the verbiage is kind of getting cut off, but this is just a visual aid to kind of see what we were focusing on. So this is the distribution of institution type. We had over 50 hours of professional development per fellow throughout the summer. What was really cool is that the academic backgrounds of our fellows were diverse as well, though we did have an overwhelming majority of our applicants and fellows who were environmental science students, environmental studies students, but we also did have a lot of interdisciplinary studies, folks that are majoring in political science, engineering students. It was really a hodgepodge, which was something that we were looking for. We really wanted to have students that have shown a commitment and interest in the green energy, in the green economy space, but who may have not had professional development opportunities in the past. We received over 200 applications in our first year, and our application was only out for 30 days. And we're really excited this year. We're going to be hosting 18 fellows, and we have already received 300 applications. So we're really excited to hopefully receive 500 this year. We were able to redistribute over $70,000 worth of stipends for our fellows, which we were very open with them on how they utilized that funding. Fellows were able to share with us that they used the funding for everything for relocation for the summer, to therapy, to food costs. And that was really our goal, right? We wanted to make sure that our fellows were supported in a way where they could completely focus on the fellowship instead of whatever financial burdens they might have been facing with. We had over 5,700 hours of hands-on work experience in the climate and energy and environmental field. And these are some of the institutions that we had represented with our fellows. These are some of our highlights. Destiny got to travel to Seattle for the inaugural Bloomberg Green Festival with her internship advisor. And while there, she was actually able to talk about the Hazel M. Johnson Fellowship Program, her own green economy, journey with Stacey Abrams, and Stacey Abrams was really interested, and so they got to get this cool photo. Emma, one of our fellows, worked at Coachtopia, which is a sub-brand under Coach, and she did life cycle tracking for the brand, and she was able to share with all of us during the fellowship on her experience. Semoit worked with Air Company in their labs as a team created clean jet fuel for commercial use, and here we have Nanaya, who worked on a myriad of different projects with Stanley Corporate, like Stanley the Cup, and did a ton of different things. And as I said before, we ended the summer with an in-person retreat where our fellows got to meet each other, share about their internship experiences, and also rest in nature. And it was really a beautiful opportunity for folks to really communicate, why they were so interested in the green economy space, some of the burdens or barriers that they've experienced thus far, and what they were able to get out of this unique community and ecosystem of care that we were able to support them with over the summer. And something that's really exciting about our fellows is that 100% of our fellows are currently working in the green economy space. So for our full-time staff, or for our fellows who graduated either grad school or undergrad, they are all working full-time, either at the organization that they interned with or at another organization that we introduced them with. And the same goes with the fellows who are currently students. They either continued on to their internships with their partner organization or are doing internships at other organizations. I'm going to go back and quickly play our fellowship video. As I shared before, it was a
Well, I don't think we have time for that because we have one more person to present and 5 minutes left.
Okay, and we can send
sorry.
it.
We can send a
Yeah,
link.
no worries.
Or put a link in the chat, or send me a link or put in the chat and people can watch it.
Unshare.
Because we'll have to go on to Steve.
Okay. Well, if you stop sharing, oh, there.
Now, if you stop sharing your screen, voila.
Oh,
Thank you. Okay.
Awesome. Share my screen. Okay. So my name is Steve Engler. I'm the founder and CEO of Emerald Energy, which is building a recruiting and training platform for clean energy technicians. And I got really interested in creating a community around prospective clean energy technicians. These would be blue collar workers, some of the electricians that were spoken of, heat pump installers, EV battery installers, solar and wind, who are really essential to the clean energy transition. But I felt like there weren't very clear pathways to get into them. And that conversely, in the white collar sector, there are a number of resources to help people navigate into clean energy, many of which have cropped up during COVID. These are, for example, Slack communities. I'm just bringing up my screen here. Work on Climate is one, New Energy Nexus. Alternatively, there are some groups like New York Climate Tech here in New York City. And after talking to a number of stakeholders in the space, it seemed like there could be a need for something like this focused on blue collar infrastructure workers. I also wanted to make this a digital product. I had some conversations around this too, like, would it be a Slack group? Would it be a WhatsApp group? There were some questions around the digital divide. And it seemed that, nearly everyone has email or access to email in some way, shape, or form, like on even a shared computer at a public library. And at the same time, they're really great platforms for publishing. So I started my own Substack called Clean Techs, and it's focused on helping people navigate into clean energy jobs, starting in New York City, where I'm based. And each edition of the newsletter, we would have a spotlight on a different aspect of the clean energy transition, as well as a deep dive into in-person, mostly free or low-cost activities in the clean energy sector, to get people out in person, meeting others in this space, and helping to build a community around this space. So our first newsletter just really focused on, what is a clean energy job, since it's a little bit vague, hard to define. We defined it as, in this case, these kind of hands-on installation and maintenance jobs for HVAC, batteries, and EVs, solar and wind. And we tried to make every issue very visual, something that you could scroll through quickly, whether you're on a phone, a tablet, or a shared computer, as well as highlight local events in New York City that you could go to learn about one of these key areas. Our second newsletter focused on an installer I met who does heat pumps, named Manny, and he had his start in New York City. He went through the public school system, the community college system, and found his way into some really cool jobs in clean energy, installing even geothermal heat pumps and then air source heat pumps out in California now. Was also great opportunity to do a podcast with Ron Kamen, who I saw is on this call right now. So go check it out. If you check out our Substack, cleantechs.substack.com, you can find this. You can play this podcast. And I guess next steps are, I would love to expand this to other cities, build out more of a chat function, because this was like a little bit one way of the newsletter went out. There was a comment section, but it wasn't very used. But I would love if there was like a Discord community that went along with this, or a WhatsApp group, as well as perhaps some funding to build some more in-person events, maybe that are just unique to this community, as opposed to kind of cross-posted ones that I found through other groups. And also, just another thing is that we partnered with workforce development organizations to get the word out on these newsletters, and I think that was helpful in terms of they were the messenger, as well as I was, in terms of people I met at job fairs and through my own journey. But just having those partnerships with local workforce development organizations was really helpful. Yeah, thank you to E2, Ron, Susan. Was so helpful, Bob and Gail. This is a really great experience, and thank you as well to the other fellows.
Thank you, Steve. Sorry we had to cut you short at the end.
No worries. Always happens.
Well, many thanks to all of you, our 2024 fellows. It's really been a pleasure working with you this year. And I want to thank all the participants for taking part in today's webinar and their interest in the fellowship. I also want to thank all the E2 members listening and those who have helped with the fellowship. As you all know, E2 is an effective way to influence policy because of your dedication and passion. For our guests, I hope you enjoyed the presentation so much you'll consider joining E2 today. Just visit e2.org and click the join link. And with that, I'll say goodbye and wish you all a great rest of your day. Thank you again for your time.